Probably just overthinking it.
All right, good morning. This is Professor Emmerich here with Pete Estenik. And Pete, thanks for joining me this morning.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, appreciate having you. We Pete is celebrating a number of things right now. He just graduated from the program and
Hmm.
achieved some certifications in AWS. So congratulations, Pete. It's well deserved, and I'm sure you're excited and probably feel a sense of relief and accomplishment and a whole bunch of emotions, right?
Definitely relief. Finally not worry about homework for once, and I don't know the last. I actually don't think I have had pretty much a break at all from homework since since I started school in like kindergarten.
Yeah. I know what that can be like. Um, so anyway, thanks for joining me here this morning. What I want to do is kind of explore your experience in the ISI program a little bit, and then hoping you can provide some insight to future students in the capstone program and in the ISI program as to your experiences and specifically with obtaining the AWS Solution Architect Associate certification, which you're one of just a handful of students to have done that so far. Um, and that's an option in our capstone course, right? And where
Hmm.
you prepared and studied for that. So future students are going to be looking at that as an option and kind of evaluating whether or not it's the best option for them. So hopefully this interview and your experience can kind of help future students sort of navigate that decision a little bit. So before we jump too far into that, Pete, um, could you just introduce yourself a little bit, your background, how you kind of came into the ISI program, maybe why you came into the ISI program, and
Okay, yeah,
just familiarize us with you a little bit.
absolutely. So I started out pretty much right out of high school. I went into the military. I joined as a linguist, a Persian Farsi linguist. And I did that because my mom had been a linguist in the military and said it was a pretty interesting experience. And I mean, I've always loved natural languages. Um, and I did that for 5 years, more or less. Um, it was pretty interesting, some pretty interesting stuff. I learned a lot of hard and soft skills, some of which I use today. And then after that, I went pretty much straight. I mean, I actually had to get an early separation packet to come to Ferris. So it was, out one gate and through another.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. My mom had also gone through this course. I mean, she went through I think like 11 years or so ago.
Oh, your
Um,
mother went through the ISI
mhm.
program. No
Yeah,
kidding. Okay.
yeah. I think she was actually in when Professor Otting was studying.
Oh, really?
Yep,
Okay.
she was in some of his classes. And
I think that was probably just before I came to Ferris full time, I suspect.
yeah, I don't think I think I mentioned a couple names, and I don't think she recognized anybody except Dr. Goglin.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so and then I ended up doing the first 2 years just all gen eds pretty much, and then the last 2 years was a kind of a full sprint to the finish. And now we're here, and now I have my bachelor's degree theoretically, anyways.
Yeah. Well, congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
It's an awesome achievement. As someone who tends to collect degrees and certifications, I really, it's a great feeling. Something
Hmm.
that nobody can ever take away from you, and personally how much sacrifice and blood, sweat, and tears you had to put into earning that. So,
Yep.
congrats. Um, all right. So, how would you kind of describe your growth through the ISI program? So you came into the ISI program after military service. Um, did you have much computing background when you came in? And whatever you came in with, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, and then kind of how you saw your skills and knowledge kind of grow over the last 4 years.
Well, I pretty much started with nothing. I mean, I thought I was pretty good at computers because I could navigate file systems on Windows,
Mm-hmm.
and that was about it.
Better than what your
Um,
friends could do, right?
Not even that much.
Not even that much.
Not
Okay.
even that much. I mean, I was pretty much completely clueless.
Mm-hmm.
And it was definitely a learning experience that was a lot of difficulty at times. A lot of it was kind of because I tend to be a bit of a more of an abstract freeform thinker, and a lot of, I mean, a lot of information security and information systems is very structured.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it definitely took a lot of restructuring of the way I looked at certain things. Um, and I mean, I've learned the biggest thing that I would say I learned is how much I don't know. And I know that's kind of a little cliche, but
Mm-hmm.
it really is true.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's just so much stuff
Mhm.
going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think if you have that outlook, you truly have learned a lot. Um, because this is a life learning occupation, right?
Hmm.
Um, and we tell students that, we tell people that when they come in, and then I think once they start peeling the layers of that onion back, and seeing all the different domains and all
Hmm.
the different aspects of information systems and information security, um, yeah, you kind of develop that, and it's a healthy outlook, right? Because you
Hmm.
you you know you have a life of learning in front of you. But I also think that's what makes it exciting for folks,
Yep.
right? Oh,
Yep.
oh yeah. Okay. So fast forwarding to the capstone, which you just finished up, right? Our
Hmm.
capstone class, ISIN 499, class students take their senior year, typically their last semester or next to last semester. And I teach that class a lot. So does Dr. Furstenberg. I think I probably teach it more than anybody, usually spring and fall. Um, and we give students options in that class so that they can explore their interests, but also kind of go deep in a particular area, and really have an achievement that really culminates the degree, and really is something um, somewhat resumeable perhaps, or certainly integrative, across the degree and across the courses. So Pete, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you chose in the capstone, and kind of how you came about making that choice, and then I'd like to talk a little bit about how you sort of executed and achieved success with your choice.
Okay. So I actually just started in place of the internship that usually takes place. I ended up getting a 6-month contract. I was reached out to by a contracting company called Otterbase,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they set me up with a 6-month contract as a SOC analyst at Jackson. So I ended up actually working 37 and a half hours a week on top of the capstone, and I had a ISIN 301 that I ended up doing halfway through the semester as well.
Okay.
So I definitely around the middle of the semester got a pretty full plate.
Mm-hmm.
So what I kind of wanted to do, what my outlook going into it was, what can I do that I'm interested in, that I know something about, that is going to be something that I have enough time to work with, um, in light of all of the other scheduling stuff that I had.
Yep.
Um, and so that was originally, I had started with the drone forensics project, and ended up falling through, unfortunately, which kind of sucks because that would have been pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But these
Yep.
things happen.
Well, you can still do it, Pete. You just don't have
I
to do it
could
for a
still do
grade
it.
anymore.
Yeah. um, but yeah, so I had taken the AWS CCP.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was last semester, or maybe it was last year. And so I kind of had a little bit of a foundational knowledge of it, and I'd enjoyed it. I enjoyed learning about it, and stuff. So I was like, I this is something that I know something about, and it's something that I know I enjoyed learning about. And so the CSAA was kind of the next natural step for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've already taken Security Plus. I hadn't taken Network Plus, but I felt like, in terms of the actual learning potential, if I was taking the Security Plus again just for the grade, I was kind of giving myself, the short end of the stick a little bit, as far as what I was actually learning, and how much I was taking advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and that's pretty impressive considering everything else you were balancing. It must have been tempting to kind of lighten your load a little bit. I mean, 37 and a half hours is pretty much a full-time job,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
So, okay. So so how did you so Pete, you were successful with this certification. It's a
Hmm.
difficult certification for students to get, but it's achievable, obviously. We've had a few students achieve it. And we're looking to to help other students achieve this as well. How did you prepare? What was what were kind of your keys to success?
So I ended up, or I started out, I guess, with the Canvas course you sent me, which was definitely useful. I mean, it gave a very good breakdown of a lot of like the more of the abstract principles of the solutions architect exam, which is, I think, probably the hardest part to get.
Mm-hmm.
Learning about all the services that AWS uses and what their specific purposes are and stuff is challenging, just because there's so many of them and
Right.
a lot of them overlap so much, but there's like, 2 degrees of separation here or there. But um, the biggest part was the fundamentals of why, you know, the ideas of why do we use these things, what is the purpose of these things,
Mm-hmm.
when if we have this problem, is this better or is this better, is this more cost effective, is this more
Right.
powerful,
Right.
and understanding those was absolutely the hardest part for me.
Mm-hmm.
um and then so once we got out of National Cyber League and I had more time to go through it, I ended up kind of just squishing the last. I think there was like 15 modules, and I was like on maybe number 6 or so by the time we finished NCL. And then so the last 9 I just kind of threw uh, all together. And then after that, I had enlisted in there's a website called Tutorials Dojo.
Mm-hmm.
I used the practice exams on there, which are developed by John Bonso. He's a pretty well known name in testing and certification and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Does a lot of stuff like that. And I'd found from Reddit and other places that those were kind of the gold standard as far as being reflective of the exam, without being actual exam questions.
Right.
And I ended up taking a couple of those, and it was a cold shower. It was really a cold
Yeah.
shower.
You didn't like your practice exam results?
No, I did
No.
not.
Yeah.
I mean, I was consistently getting like 40% on those.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, well, there's still some learning left to do.
Right. Some
Um,
opportunity here.
exactly. And so I think the last week and a half, I mean, pretty much every day it was about 8 hours of studying. Because by that time I had more time because NCL was gone, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, so I just put my foot down on the pedal, and pretty much didn't get off my computer until I finished the exam. Um, One of the other really useful things was a YouTube channel called Free Code Academy. I think that's what it's called. I can double check later, but and they have a 10.5 hour long video, uh, pretty much specifically dedicated to breaking down the concepts of all the services, when they should be used over certain other
Mm-hmm.
services in the same realm.
Mm-hmm.
And each section, each major service was laid out with a cheat sheet. And I ended up going through and just like screenshotting those cheat sheets, and I printed all of them out, and then just sort of read that when I was on breaks or whatever. And then while I was working, I would have that video playing, so I was just kind of passively picking up stuff here and there as
Mm-hmm.
I was working.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, I ended up taking the exam on a Sunday at like 7:45 p.m. Just pretty much studied up until I gave myself like a couple hours break just to let my mind cool off a little bit.
Right. Right. Okay.
But I mean, those three resources were the main things that I used for it.
Okay. Yeah. So, one thing I remember about that exam, I took that exam as well a few years ago, and I understand it's changed a little bit, but I think you described how I would describe it pretty closely, and that is, you're given business scenarios, right? You're
Hmm.
given business scenarios, so you have to kind of dissect a paragraph of a question. It's not just like once. I mean, there are probably some shorter questions on the exam, but there's a lot of, you know, big questions on the
Hmm.
exam where they'll give you like a full scenario. And even though it's multiple choice, you have to choose the best architecture, right?
Yeah.
Or the best security solution, whatever it is that meets that problem, not just one that solves the problem, but the best one, right?
Hmm.
The most cost efficient, um, uh, fault tolerant, decoupled solution that will scale,
Yep.
right? Solution.
Yep.
Um, so, you said that you tend to think in the abstract. I suspect that that helped you quite a bit, to be able to kind of go from that bigger picture architecture and kind of drill down into the details, because each of those questions kind of forces you to do that a little bit, right? You sort of have
Yeah.
to see you have to see the problem, you have to see the bigger picture, and then say, okay, what's the best way to bring these different services and pieces to bear, out of this huge buffet of
Hmm.
cloud services, right?
Yeah, it's
And
like 170
configuration details.
something.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, um, yeah, so that's it sounds like a fairly typical experience. It wasn't without its stress and sacrifice, I'm sure. Um, the horrible thing about these certs is that they do require, dedicated prep time that's
Hmm.
focused, right? Um, and what you described you had to do is what I've had to personally do as well. Once you have that deadline and you've got to do whatever it takes to put
Yep.
the time in and get those practice exam scores where you need them to be,
Yep.
before that date approaches. And without having that hard deadline, I mean, without the capstone and a hard deadline, would you have ever done that? Well,
Uh,
I wouldn't say ever, but would you have done that anytime soon?
it probably would have taken a little bit longer. Probably would have taken a little longer.
Yeah. Yeah, having
Wouldn't have
that
been as many
deadline.
9-hour days.
Yeah, yeah, they're miserable days, but once they're done, feels good.
Hmm.
I imagine you slept pretty good that night, right?
Oh yeah.
Or maybe better than you had been. So,
A lot longer, that's for sure.
yeah. All right. So, what are your plans now, Pete? You got your degree, you've got these certifications. What's next for you?
Well, so I'd like to continue my education, obviously, on
Hmm.
my own time. Right now, I got a 160-hour software development course. Um, my one of my buddies is in from the army is in software development. Makes a pretty good amount of money and generally likes his job.
Okay.
um and it's something that's pretty interesting to me, also kind of more of a bit of an abstract
Hmm.
field than right now. It's just it's I feel like a little bit of an internet janitor
Yeah.
right now as a SOC analyst. It just keeps coming. um but so I'd like to try to find something that's a little bit more like I feel like I'm building something.
Mm,
And I mean, that's always, always, always been something that I've been, I mean, obsessed with.
yeah.
In a lot of things in life, I feel like I want to create something,
Mm,
and so software development and AWS are two I think of the really applicable interpretations of that in information systems.
hmm. Yeah, I can relate. And I think that's a good path if that's your interest. I'm an old software engineer. I always
Hmm.
loved building and designing software. So, um, there's a lot out there in this realm, right? So you can be a SOC analyst for a while and reinvent yourself as a software engineer, and then who
Yep.
knows where you pivot from there. So,
Yep.
all right, Pete. Well, again, congratulations on your degree, graduating, achieving these certifications. It was a pleasure having you in the program these last few years. Um, and I certainly hope that our paths cross someday. Would love to have you back to Ferris. come back and hire an intern, come to their career fair, be a guest speaker, right?
Yeah, that's
Do
the
all
plan.
those things, do all those things you appreciated as a student,
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be this next year, obviously, right?
Yeah.
You
Well,
got
I
a
mean,
career in front of you. Yeah.
who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll be.
Maybe it will be. Yeah. All right. Okay, Pete. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And for those who watch and listen to this video, I hope you found it helpful with your own path through the program and through the capstone.
Thank you. And if I could say one last thing,
Sure, absolutely.
I think the biggest thing is don't get too caught up in what in Professor Furstenberg. I love him. He's a great dude. He's absolutely fantastic guy. But he's also extremely passionate. I mean, he lives and breathes this stuff. And one of the most intimidating things was feeling like I had to be that level of passionate, and feeling like I had to be waking up at 3 a.m. or wherever, whenever he wakes up. But and it's not just him in general, or it's not just him, it's in general, right? I think it's very important to just understand it is something that can be intimidating and very difficult at first, but it's not necessarily the end, right? And it's not necessarily something that should scare you away.
Right. Right.
It should be if it, I mean, and if it is a huge passion that you will spend 5-6 hours of your own free time doing it, I mean, it's incredible. But it also doesn't have to be like that, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I mean, certainly like anything in life, if you turn it into your passion, you tend to spend a lot of time on it and become, develop an expertise and achieve a lot in that area. But at the end of the day, for most of us, it's your job, and I tell students that, yeah, you have to develop a passion. You have to work hard, be a lifelong learner. But you know what? I really recommend you get a hobby.
Yep,
Because
exactly.
you're gonna need it.
Yep.
Because
Oh yeah.
this is a never-ending cycle of, one new technology, one new attack, one new whatever after another, which keeps things interesting. But it also gets a little exhausting at times. So you need something to redirect your attention a little bit. And yeah, we all don't have to work 20 hours a day.
Exactly.
Enjoy life a little bit, right?
Yeah. 100%.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for that last piece as well. So,
Absolutely.
all right. And thanks for being here with me today. I think this is going to be very helpful.
Oh, thank you for having me.